you not here tomorrow, I thought I'd quickly go over some of this. So the poem's called Pygmalion's Bride. Now, you need to kind of know the allusion. Pygmalion is from a Greek myth. It's from Ovid's Metamorphoses. So this is like an epic poem. It's like a book, basically. And it's from it's from this. So Pygmalion is a fella. He's the king of Cyprus, and he's basically this like amazing sculptor. He makes like statues and stuff. And he creates this female figure from ivory, and he thinks it's amazing, right? He's like, oh my God, this is the most beautiful thing ever. I love it. I'm so in love with her. So he prays to Venus, who's a Greek god, who takes pity on him and brings the statue to life. Now, it's important to note this, right? This is proper like misogynistic. He falls in love essentially with a statue. She has no agency, no power, she can't do anything, and he just loves her for her look. So obviously it's a bit sexist. So Duffy takes this Greek myth and she flips the tale on its head by giving the perspective of the statue with contemporary themes like the male gaze, where we sexualize women through this like heteronormative way, the way we objectify women, female sexuality and the way they lack it or the way they can like take power of it, and just general power imbalance. Now it's a dramatic monologue without any sort of 4 meter rhyme, like consistent. So it's not like a sonnet where it's like 14 lines, or it's not like loads of quatrains or cinquetrains, like where it's every single stanza has the same lines or the same amount of syllables, right? The speaker of the poem is the statue. It's not Pygmalion, it's the statue. And she describes how she resists his aggressive advances. Now, I do want to know, and this is quite important, one of the things that Duffy does that makes the poet, the set poem is an example of postmodern poetry, is she uses like a kind of ironic intertextuality and like allusion to these Greek myths. Now, you should need to know that like all Western culture kind of comes from Greece, or ancient Greece, right? Like the ideas of democracy, our ideas of philosophy, and a lot of our narratives and stories, our fables and myths and all that, they all come from ancient Greece. So if these stories are sexist and misogynistic, if Greek culture was, and we take their culture and we take their stories, then it sort of implies that like all the culture going from there, all Western culture which comes from ancient Greece, might be sexist because of that. So that's one reason Duffy takes a lot of these Greek ones. This is what makes it an example of postmodern literature. Postmodern literature attempts to deconstruct narratives, there's no singular truth. We can't know anything for sure, and like these ideas of power, they're not biological and they can be torn apart and stuff like that. So that's one thing that postmodern lit does, and it uses irony or satire or humour or intertextuality and allusion to do that. Anyway, so the poem begins. Cold I was like snow, like ivory. I thought he will not touch me, but he did. So this is the opening stanza. It's a closed stanza. You might remember we're talking about open and closed stanzas. And we've got this semantic field of coldness. She starts with cold. Now, obviously, this alludes to her emotional state, right? So the word and the semantic field of coldness implies that she is emotionally disengaged. To be warm is to be emotional, and therefore to be cold is to be emotionally disengaged. Like snow, like ivory. We've got snow and ivory. They're white, they're pure. Perhaps she's virginal, right? Perhaps she's innocent. Because, again, we have to justify all of our connections that we make because these things are unstained, right? But again, they're cold to the touch. I thought, he will not touch me, right? Why is he capitalized? Why does we give it the grand he, the idea, not just the singular person, but like the grand, the big he will not touch me. But he did. That three syllable end of the first stanza, closing it, is very abrupt, it's very short. How does this impact her tone? How does this impact the atmosphere? That abruptness of it. One thing we've got to look for is structure. Short structure, how does that impact things? Also, look at the sounds here. I thought he will not touch me, but he did. You've got a lot of these plosive like B, T, D, these cacophonic sounds. Again, they're quite aggressive. What's happening is quite aggressive. And that adds to the shortness as well. So look at the sound. He kissed my stone cool lips. Now again, the idea that it's stone here, and in fact she's cold, obviously alludes to the original myth. But again, to be stone is to be passive, to not move. to be emotionally disengaged, perhaps again, same with the call. She lay still. So we've got the juxtaposition here. So he kissed my stone cold lips. Look at the juxtaposition of the structures here. He has this long structure. He's the subject of this sentence, and it's this longer line, and she lay still. This is enjambment because one line spills over to the next, but this short line juxtaposes the long one, perhaps alluding to the power indifference, as though I had died. So she's very, very passive. Think about that visual imagery. He stayed. He thumbed my marble eye. So we've got a lot of this really aggressive kind of imagery here, which might be important. So consider the effect, what that evokes. To me, you know, if we're talking about effects, we've got emphasize to draw attention to a particular idea, imply, or evoke. To me, the violent imagery does evoke a kind of uncomfortable feeling. It does also emphasize his aggression and her passivity. The marbles, they're marble, I don't know if you notice, or if you Google them, they're like a delicate glass thing. So we've got that juxtaposition as well. She's quite fragile in relation to what he's doing. But again, look at the structures of the sentence. We're going to the next. This is the whole stanza. Sorry, there's just a like weird line break. He spoke. So she begins this one. He spoke. We've got another close stanza that he calls them blunt endearments. A bit of wordplay here, right? She is a statue. He is a sculptor, right? We call the things that they use to sculpt, maybe like blunt tools, right? The blunt could wear something down. Perhaps she's been worn down by his words. He's boring. He keeps trying to like flirt with her, whatever, and they're wearing her down. They're chiseling away at her. Think of it like that. What he'd do and how. Again, that's sexual illusion. His words were terrible. My ears were sculptor. Stone deaf shells. I heard the sea. Now, if we look here, we've got a lot of sibilant sounds. My ears were sculptor, stone deaf shells. I heard the sea. Right. So what's this sibilance do? When we're talking about sounds, we ask ourselves, does the sound sound like anything? You know, perhaps it sounds like a whisper. She's super quiet. Perhaps it reminds us of something. In this case, that might remind us of snakes. That's quite sinister. We can ask, is the sound harsh or soft in its context? Once we've kind of got this idea of the sound, we want to connect it to the content and see if there's harmony. So I might say here, she's quiet. She says like shells, like the sea. She's really quiet. So I might say like it emphasizes her passivity, maybe, possibly, right? Or we could say like his actions are quite sinister. They remind us of a snake. Snakes are evil because they're in the Bible and blah, 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 blah. They're quite sinister. But we need to make some form of connection here. So what can we say about the sibilant sounds in relation to his actions? His words were terrible. My ears were sculptor. The parallelism, the similar grammar juxtapose each other here. Terrible, she's passive again. They're sculptor. They're like an object while he is being quite sort of aggressive through that word there. Think about the semantic field of the sea. She drowns him out. Like she's got these shells. We've got the sea. What's important about the sea there? The idea of like drowning someone out. Perhaps she's trying to relax herself. Right? Perhaps she's trying, you know, like when you have white noise when you go to bed or something like that. I am kind of analysing this on the spot, by the way, so I do apologise. Yeah, perhaps she's trying to like drown him out, like thinking of the sea, and maybe that's where we get the sibilant sounds from. They remind us of the sea. They evoke the idea of the sea, which contributes to the meaning. They work in conjunction with the imagery to apply. She's trying to ignore him, right? I heard him shout. We've got that juxtaposition again. That short sentence juxtaposes all of what she's trying to do. And then he bought me presents, polished pebbles, little bells. I didn't blink, was dumb. We've got plosive sounds here. He bought me presents, polished pebbles, little bells. Now think about the action of that. He's buying her gifts, but the gifts he's buying her with are introduced with these plosive p sounds. Are these hard sounds or soft sounds? Even though he's buying her presents and gifts, maybe these sounds kind of imply that it's a violent act to buy her gifts when she don't really want them, right? Violent sounds emphasize the violence even though he's buying her gifts. I didn't blink was dumb. Getting the idea that she's trying to ignore him, right? He bought me pearls and necklaces and rings. The polysyndeton here and emphasizes the excess by which he's trying to come onto her, right? Like just as there's excessive, what do you call them? Excessive like conjunctions, sorry. And he called them girly things. Quite patronising to call them girly. To be a girl, not a woman, is to infantilise someone, to make them like a children. Why does it keep coming out with this? He ran his clammy hands. Think of that imagery. That definitely evokes a feeling. Think about people touching you with gross, sweaty, clammy hands. What's that do? I didn't shrink, played statue, stum. Again, we've got sibilance there. Think about the importance of that. And she's playing, right? Again, she's like, it's all a performance. A big thing in the Duffy's work is about performance. So think about what's significant about that. He let his singers sink into my... Think about a verb like let there. What's important about that? She's shrinking, statue, stum. She's not saying anything. And he allows himself, which gives him the power. He's the one in control. He's the subject of the sentence grammatically. And he lets himself sink fingers into flesh. Again, quite violent. And we've got this sibilant sound, maybe emphasises the sinister, evil nature of him because of the connotations with snakes. I don't know. I would not bruise. She's subversive. She's powerful. She's not going to be like defeated. He looked for marks for purple hearts. Could be an allusion to, like obviously it just means bruises, right? Purple hearts are bruises, but could also be like a medal. Perhaps it's a reward for himself. I don't know, for inky stars. Purple hearts are a war medal, so perhaps she's saying like these are her war wounds. I'm not sure. Inky stars for smudgy clues. His nails or claws. That animal imagery there. That metaphor calling his nails claws. He's a predator. I showed no scratch, no scrape, no scar. The sk. Again, think about the consonants, the repetition of the sk, or skr. What's the effect of that? What kind of feeling does it evoke, especially when it's talking about scratching or scraping, and talking about his claws? He propped me up on pillows, propped up like she has no movement, like she can't move for herself. She's a doll, jawed all night. He's gabbing away and talking all night. It's boring, but also we've got jaw like maybe a predator again, like, I don't know, the movie Jaws, I don't know. My heart was ice, again, that semantic field of coldness, was glass, the parallelism, the juxtaposition. His was gravel, horse. She's cold, she's smooth, she's maybe fragile. He is sharp and coarse to the touch, not very nice. And he talked white-black, hyperbole. He's so insistent. He's trying to convince white to change its very nature and become black, right? Like that's the hyperbole. So then we swap, we link this. She takes what he's doing, and we know that through the rhyme. Black rhymes with tack. So I changed tack, and she changes her attitude. And she's like, do you know what, mate? You're going to be like that. I'm going to do this. And she grew warm like candle wax, right? So now we've got this juxtaposition to the earlier semantic field of coldness, and she's warm. She's changed tack. She's acting like him. We know that through the rhyme, and she's becoming warm. She kissed back again through the rhyme. We know who she's writing. Was soft, was pliable. All right, we've got that parallel structure. We've got asyndeton, got hot, got what? This arch, coiled, rive. This asyndeton removing the conjunctions here possibly speeds up the tempo, makes it very sexual, right? Just like she's kissing him back, she's growing warm, she's pliable, she's moaning, she gets hot and wild, she arched, coiled, rive. This word also, these words have connotations with snakes. She's acting back. Begged for his child. And there's tempo speeding up. But she says, again, because performance is the idea here, it screamed my head off. It was all an act. So she's playing, she's performing. The idea that women are supposed to perform for men. And like now when they actually conform to these or when they act in a maybe masculine way or something like that, it scares men off when they're powerful. At the beginning, she performs and she acts cold and she acts uninterested. It doesn't work. So as she changes, as she acts in the way that, you know, maybe he wanted to do in his head, but in reality it's more masculine, maybe scares her off. She has agency. He doesn't want her to have agency. He wants her to be a statue. He wants to objectify her. And now she's like powerful, she's sexual, she's like she's got control. And so he hasn't seen her since. Simple as that. Brings her close to the poem. Very, very simple. He ran away. It's quite funny. Yeah, it's a good poem. Hopefully, I'll send some other resources, but hopefully if you weren't here, that covers some of it. I do want you to focus on looking at structure and sound, please. I also want you to really look at how we do level 1. So I'm going to send some resources. I want you to do some stuff. This poem is going to be an formative assessment. So please take it seriously. I hope you enjoyed MUN. You guys are amazing. Thank you.